So offensive line, obviously a topic of discussion this weekend online. Obviously been a topic of discussion for the University of Florida since 2000. What do you think? 11, 12?
8, 9?
Pouncey's left.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there was discussions about the offensive line when I was in college. I guess everybody always complains about the offensive line, but for a long time, for the better part of a decade or more, the offensive line has been a concern at the University of Florida. The Gators go out, grab a couple transfers in the offensive line, recruit a couple guys that are, more highly rated than some of the other offensive linemen they've gotten over the years. We talked about that on the show last week, right? That the left side was a lot stronger than the right side, just in terms of overall strength of their ability to play the position. There are some concerns on the right side. So, Nick, what is your take from what you're hearing?
My take hasn't changed. Like I've said in our show, I sat here in November screaming from the mountaintops, Florida needs to go and get a veteran starting guard in the offensive or in the portal. And I said, you're not shopping at Neiman Marcus in the transfer portal. Everyone's got you're shopping at, buying dinged cans for a discount at times. They got Brandon Crenshaw Dixon, they got Devon Manuel. I've literally heard nothing about Devon Manuel.
Not
positive
good
or negative, just not talked about. Brandon Crenshaw Dixon is your right now starter at right tackle. They tried to move Damian George inside when I was like inside and we spent a couple of days with a strength and conditioning coach. They were raving about Damian George. And I've consistently said, like, hey, listen, this is where I disagree with Florida's coaching staff the biggest. This is the biggest separation I have with their staff. They keep saying the offensive line is better. It's going to be a strength. They're deeper. And I said, I don't believe it. They signed 5 guys, I think, this offseason, including Zandamela. And I think they believe they hit on those guys. And even if I believe that, that's good. But how much are you depending on a freshman offensive lineman to come in and play meaningful reps? And there's a reason. Well, everyone likes to throw, Laramie Tunsil at me and throw, the 3 guys who have done it in the SEC over the last decade. And they're outliers because it's a developmental position. And it's really hard to come in and do that right away. I had a Mountain West coach I was talking to ask about Brandon Crenshaw Dixon because the guy had coached against him and he questioned their take. And I said, oh, well, I haven't seen him play. I'll have to see him play. And I questioned Damian George. Would he be able to change his body enough and be strong enough to handle the nose tackles and defensive tackles that you're playing inside? And I just don't think Florida's right side of the line is settled. And we're sitting here 19 days before a game. They wear hats that say 5=1. We gave them the excuse last year of, well, they didn't have any continuity and they didn't have chemistry because they didn't have continuity. And you have to have chemistry and continuity on the offensive line. And we're sitting here now 19 days before a game and you're moving Rod Kearney over to right guard to see if he can play. And you're moving Cam Waits back out to tackle to see if he can play. That movement tells me that you haven't figured anything out yet on that side of the ball. I expect Austin Barber to play better as long as he can stay healthy. I think he was much more injured than we knew last year, which caused his play to suffer. I like Najee Harris, but again, it's going to be a redshirt or a sophomore. He didn't redshirt. He's going to be a sophomore starting his first time. There's probably going to be some growing pains, but I think he's going to be a really good player. I think you found a guy in Jake Slaughter, and then at right guard, right tackle. I just don't know what they're going to do. I think they're hoping for somebody to step up, maybe a Caden Jones, Cameron Waits at right tackle, maybe Najee Harris or Bryce Lovett at right guard. I just don't think and haven't thought that right side of the line was settled. And listen, I could still be wrong. And if the line plays great and we're sitting here in October, I'll tell you I was wrong. I just, I've stayed on the same line where this is what Florida's saying. This is what I think. And it's the farthest I'm apart from the coaching staff in our opinions of a position group.
Why didn't you guys ask him about the offensive line today? I know you only asked one question probably, but it seems to be a topic of everybody's. What? I didn't watch the press conference. I just was basing that off of what I've normally heard. I don't watch a lot, to be honest with you. It's good bedtime. it's good to listen to before bed. But why isn't the topic of offensive line? Are you guys probably not going to get a super straight answer, or is it just
I think
progress? Everybody's trying hard. They're busting their butts. They're competing. Coach speak.
Yeah, no, I asked about so I saw Rod Kearney when I was watching the offensive line at one of the 15-minute open portions, and I questioned them moving him to center last year because he was a very good guard. And they moved Najee was a center in high school, Kearney was a guard in high school, and they get to campus and they switch positions for both guys. I think with Rod, you have a guy named Jake Slaughter who's a redshirt junior, could be back here next year. And you've got probably the future in Jason Zandamela at center. So now it makes more sense. Like, hey, we don't need Rod Kearney just to be – and Zandamela might redshirt and Rod Kearney can still be your backup, but he could be your backup center who's also your starting right guard. I think in a press conference setting, it might get to a point where we have to ask, but we're going to get better information to report by talking to sources than to ask Billy in front of a camera. Hey, does the right side of your offensive line suck? And how do you even word that question?
Well, you don't use suck.
Right.
I mean, it was just I don't want to tell them about how to do their job, but it was a scrimmage, and you could just ask him how did the line fare in the scrimmage. I think would have been a decent question for him to get, somewhat honest or hold him accountable to the progression, because that's just been a ongoing problem. I mean, you're 3 years in. Everybody can see what the recruiting has been at the position. We're talking about grabbing guys in the portal, but 3 years in, you should have your guys that you develop at the position to be able to step in. The portal should just be supplemental. And they haven't been able to recruit at the high school level to get the talent in to be able to develop to be sufficient. Like Cam Waits, regards to injury, he hasn't developed. Bring them over from Louisiana, Lafayette, whatever the school they was at, bro.
Louisiana, I think these days.
Yeah, whatever they want to call it. Bringing him over, size look promising, athleticism look promising, but he hasn't developed at all at guard or tackle. You have Kearney, you have Lovett, you have guys that you recruited, but you haven't brought in any guys, and you're paying an offensive coordinator who's also the offensive line coach. You got two at the position, and they're not putting it together. That room is holding the whole team back. So it's just no excuses to whatever product they put out there this year. They haven't recruited well at the position. They haven't developed well at the position as of now, right? They, like you said, we could go out there and maybe they put together a good product, but as we know it right now, they haven't been able to get it together at that position. So there's just no excuses,
So then why was the expectation at a place where when you hear, hey, the offensive line, especially the right side, might be struggling, why is there shock and awe? If you're the same person that's hey, the offensive line recruiting stinks, it's not where it needs to be, then why are we what do you mean the offensive line's not playing well?
Because it's flying season. Yeah, no,
just
not us.
But listening to you and what you just said, I'm no, they haven't recruited to a level that I think they should have. And maybe they did this last year with the guys they signed. They think they did. I like Bryce Lovett. I like Najee Harris. I like Rod Kearney. I think they nailed those three.
Yeah, Fletcher Westfall. I like him.
But Fletcher Westfall is a freshman who's not playing because he has mono right now.
Well, you just named a redshirt freshman, so I'm allowed to just name a freshman out of people that I think could get there.
I'm mentioning that he's
conversation, Nick.
Right. But I'm mentioning he's also a freshman who's not playing right now because he has mono. And when do you get cleared to go and play a physical sport like football?
Why don't you tell him, Nick?
The line when you have mono.
Yeah,
but Kearney's not that. Kearney's not the same situation. We all agree that Kearney was a better guard than center last show, and he should be playing guard. So moving him back to guard shouldn't be too much of an awkward situation. That should be right in Kearney's wheelhouse. And he's been in the strength and conditioning program. Yep. He's been to a couple springs. That kid in the SEC, from where you recruited him, he should be ready to go. If the offensive line is this bad, a guy that's coming in with Kearney's talent should be ready to go as a sophomore in some capacity, brother. That's just my take.
I like him. And I've been campaigning to move him back to guard for a hot minute. I think that's the spot, and I think he should be your starter.
Yeah, 100%. Who was the starters in the scrimmage?
The three on the left that and then George and BCD, Crenshaw Dixon.
All right, I'm gonna tell you something about Damian George. That's why I knew that Nick Saban should probably retire, because when he said Damian George was one of the better offensive linemen on the Bama team when he transferred, I said, after seeing him play last year, I was like, yeah, Saban's losing it.
Well, if he was so good, then you wouldn't have sat him, right? Like, we should.
But he told a bold-faced lie like that to us.
No, I know. I mean, he also told everybody that he wasn't going to take the Alabama job when he was a Dolphins coach, and
that's
playing 2
hours later. Nathaniel mentioned, so Caden Jones is someone who I didn't really have on my radar at all, but keep hearing good things about. And he missed a little bit of practice time with like a nagging injury, nothing serious. Caden Jones is a guy, so I think Caden Jones, Cam Waits are the ones that are now pushing for playing time reps and potentially a starting job at right tackle. I think, I mean, we still have 2 weeks. There's still a lot of practices, another full scrimmage.
Nick, that's not a lot of time. I know you're like, that's 2 weeks. I will say, Caden Jones is in my personal doghouse. I was in my road to glory, and he.
Oh no!
I broke off a 65-yard run, only to be called back on a holding.
Oh man!
You know,
I'm gonna blame it on coaching. He was coached improperly on his PlayStation 5.
Yeah. All right, you got to pick somebody to guard. You know what I'm saying? Your new daughter, Nick. She's sitting in the crib. You got to get somebody to guard you. Either Damian George or Gene DeLance.
Oh, geez.
Shotgun. Me and a shotgun.
I saw.
That's who's guarding my daughter. Me and a shotgun.
No, I mean, Cam Waits. I hope him or Caden figures it out. I've seen enough of Damian George, and no slight to him. While there's a little slight to him, but I don't think he's SEC caliber offensive lineman. I just don't see it. So hopefully one of the young boys figure it out.
I mean, he worked his ass off. You know, when I was there talking with like Tyler Miles and Jake Sankel, they were raving about him, and like it's tough. He came to them. Obviously, he like as much as we talked about him, and as much as the numbers show it, the tape shows it, like. He realized, hey, I did not play well enough at tackle. He came to the coaching staff and was like, can I try guard? Like maybe the footwork wasn't there, maybe the speed. When you're playing tackle, you've got 9 techniques lining up halfway, past the slot receiver and just running past you. But he knew that like, hey, it's going to take a lot of commitment to completely change your body because now you're not worried about the speed of the 9 techniques, but you've got a nose tackle who weighs 330 who's hitting you right in the mouth right away. And you've got to get upper body strength, shoulder strength, your pushing motion. He did an incredible job, dedicated himself, changed his body completely. I just don't know. And from what I've heard, it's not working out. And to me, the proof is that you're cross-training Rod Kearney to potentially be a starter there. I think the world of Rod. Rod looks like $1 million. Does not look like an offensive lineman at all. Looks fantastic. He's another guy who works his ass off. There is no spring break for him. It's spring break is going down somewhere and spending the entire week, working out, lifting, doing lineman drills. So
coaches got to develop, brother. Like talent is there. Coaches have got to develop the position.
It's tough to be here 3 years in. Right. And I know that there's transition classes and everything else. And I know they try to get some starters out of the offensive line or for the offensive line in the transfer portal. You have to have mutual interest, right? We're just getting to a point where you've invested a lot of money, $1.5 million a year in salaries that you need to start seeing that development. And it just starts to be concerning, right? I think that's where I'm at, right? I think we were concerned going into the Napier regime that the offensive line was in tough shape. There's been a couple guys that they've recruited that I think there's some excitement about, but now we're in year 3. And at some point you've got to figure out solutions and not excuses.
Yeah. But I had a buddy hit me up today after I wrote that thing about the offensive line. He was like, are you getting people hating on you for this? I'm like, no, this is what I've been saying since the spring. I've been pretty consistent with my opinion on the offensive line. Again, it's just my opinion. It's probably a little more informed than the average fan. But it's just an opinion. It could be wrong.